Let's roll. This is SportsRage. I am Gabriel Morency, the pimps, the players, the hustlers, the people, the busters, and everybody else in between. We are back, and so is the NBA. Let's roll. We've got the Los Angeles Lakers and the Golden State Warriors coming up in a couple of moments' time. The Dallas Stars counterpart, the Dallas Mavericks in action right now. The Dallas Stars throwing it down. We've got a bunch of action going on here this evening. We're going to get to it. We got a bunch of NHL games coming up here tonight in the late night hours. We've got picks, we've got props, and we've got everything else in between. So the Mavs are up 123 to 110 right now with a minute left in this basketball game. I talked about the Dallas Stars in the NHL. We've got the Toronto Maple Leafs taking on the Vegas Golden Knights tonight. The Vancouver Canucks and the Seattle Kraken. The Dallas Stars lost 4-1 as favorites tonight against the Ottawa Senators. The Dogs continue to bark and bite in the National Hockey League. I don't even know where to get started, but we've got to get these bets in too. So we're gonna play along. You can play along with me as I get these bets in, but we've got some accounting to do right now first. So let's get this party started here. It's a big night tonight. Actually, we've got a lot of action going on and big games. Teams trying to end losing streaks. We're back. As far as the NBA is concerned, college basketball, we got West Coast action, late night action coming up here. And we've got an old school cast tonight. Lou Gamblu steps up and in. It's been a long time since Lou's been on the show with us. It's been nothing personal. It just is what it is. Sometimes things don't fall into place. But we saw Lou last year in Phoenix at the World Baseball Classic, so it'll be great to catch up with Lou Gamblu in the house tonight. We'll talk. Lou's all fired up. He's got NHL futures. He's got college basketball thoughts. Lou's a big college baseball bettor. And, of course, Lou loves combat sports. We've got UFC Fight Night 287. And I don't think Lou has too much interest. I think Lou's just one of those, like, he's into the UFC and not like all the other leagues. But pretty cool stuff this week with PFL versus Bellator. We'll take a look at that. We'll take a look at that as it's a cool concept. PFL has really built itself up, and Bellator has, some solid fighters. And Francis Ngannou is going to be fighting the winner of the Bader fight. So there's some cool stuff going on there we'll get into. The basketball game is over. Mavericks win 123 to 113 final score. But who cares what happened? You already know what happened. Let me tell you what's going to happen. Or at least what I think is going to happen, what I hope is going to happen, because I'm putting money down on this right now. As Van Halen once so eloquently stated, right now, I'm betting on the NHL right now. All right, the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Vegas Golden Knights. This is a tough game. I talk about not really liking betting on Vegas games. They don't have Mark Stone, right? Mark Stone's kind of the heart and soul of their hockey team. We've got the starting goalies tonight. It's Martin Jones going for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Aiden Hill will be going for the Vegas Golden Knights tonight. We're going to play Vegas. We're not going to go crazy with it, but we're going to play Vegas. And I'm blacked out as far as this game is concerned. But the Raging Redhead Cam Stewart will have his eye on this one all night. So we're going to pull the trigger on the Vegas Golden Knights. We'll pass on the total that is an even 6 right now. The Vancouver Canucks and the Seattle Kraken release the Kraken. So the Kraken hosting a Vancouver Canucks team that have lost 3 hockey games in a row for the first time this year. All right. They had lost two in a row once, I think, earlier this year. They haven't lost a lot of games this year, Vancouver. So this is actually their worst run that they're on right now, even though they're not playing poorly. That's hockey, right? That's life, actually. You can work, and you know what I mean? Life isn't fair sometimes, right? It is what it is. Right? Some lazy people win the lottery and some people work themselves to death. It is, it just is what it is. But the Canucks didn't play poorly against the Winnipeg Jets. They lost the game. They played well. They just lost the game against a good goalie. They were up 5-2 after 2 periods of play against Minnesota. They fell apart in the third period and somehow lost 10-7. And then last night it was a heartbreaker. Man, they were better than Colorado. They couldn't, they haven't had a lot of puck luck this week, the Canucks. So it's a big game for them tonight. I'll tell you what, the Vancouver Canucks have the Boston Bruins coming up on Saturday. And the Bruins, man, the Bruins are the Bruins, all right? So if you're Vancouver, you probably don't want to tempt fate and ride into the Bruin game with a 4-game losing streak. All you need to know about the importance, it's too cliche to say, wow, they've lost 3 in a row, they're going to want it, this and that. No kidding. Everybody wants it. A lot of things we're going to get to tonight are upsetting me that I saw. I see that I saw a headline tonight. The Washington Commanders are doing a lot of homework on Jaden Daniels. Is that news? I mean, aren't they kind of doing a lot of homework? Yeah, they have the second pick in the NFL draft. Okay, it's news that they're doing homework on one of the top prospects in the draft. Okay. Breaking news, everybody. But, so this, well, they need the game. Whatever. Just because you need something in life doesn't mean that you're going to get it. But all you need to know about the Vancouver Canucks is who they're starting in goal tonight. Coming off the Colorado game, they're starting Thatcher Demko. All right? Like, they want the win. You know what I'm saying? They're like, no. We're not starting our backup goalie because we're going back-to-back. We're on a 3-game losing streak. Our backup goalie just gave up 10 goals in the last game that he played. We're starting our starter. All right? We're going with Demko again. So it just goes to show the edge that the Vancouver Canucks sort of have coming into tonight, sensing the importance of stopping the bleeding of their 3-game losing streak. Won't be easy, though. Seattle and Vancouver, it's a new rivalry. But we'll pull the trigger on the Vancouver Canucks at minus 135. The total is also 6 in this hockey game. I think it plays to the under. I think this does play to, I think it's a lower scoring. We can get 6.5 at minus 135, and that's what we'll do. We'll go under 6.5 at minus 135, and we'll take the Vancouver Canucks at minus 135. So we got 2 minus 135s on the board. We're taking the Vegas Golden Knights at minus 115. NBA basketball. We've got the Lakers and the Warriors. That's the big-time TV game coming up here in a couple of minutes. No LeBron James tonight. I played a same-game parlay player prop here. There was an odds boost. You can get this at like plus 150. It was plus 175, but it came down. It's will Curry score 25 or more and AD score 25 or more. Remember, there's no LeBron James tonight, so I would expect that AD does go off this evening, and he does rack it up. So I did get in on that, and I'm going to take Victor Wembanyama over 23.5 points scored this evening, and let's go over 242.5 points combined between the Spurs and the Kings. Shout out to everybody joining us on Sirius XM Channel 159. We got a full house on the program and a ton of live in-game action to break down and bet on. Let's roll. This is Sports Rage. Like the Minnesota Wild were down by 2 goals today. They were down by 3 goals, actually, today at one point. And they came back and won. Like teams like, the Edmonton Oilers and the Coyote game went back and forth. The NHL really, you could argue, really is the best sport for in-game betting where you can pull the trigger on both teams.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
The first unanimous number 1 team this season in the AP poll, which is the kiss of death. True. Right now, given what we've seen winning on the road in college basketball, it's a kiss of death to walk in there as a unanimous number 1 team in the country. Everyone says you're awesome. Everyone's telling you how great you are. And you go up against a coach who has your number for the most part.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Guess what? Rock fight alert. Rock fight alert. Look at this Missouri-Tennessee score at the under 16. 1-0 Missouri. What is that?
Watched the entire Penguin game on Sunday. Been watching a lot of their games. I feel like we're seeing the end of the Empire. There's talk of them maybe trading some big names.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
I think you try to trade Mikal Bridges. I think he's someone that is a 3-and-D guy, can score, and his game is elevated since leaving Phoenix, even though his game has maybe regressed a little bit from last year. At the number 2 option, Mikal Bridges can fetch you, I would say, at least 3 first-round draft picks. If you're not going to contend with Mikal Bridges, do him right, trade him, do a full rebuild.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
SportsRage
This
late
sort of
night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Let's roll the Thursday night throwdown. This is SportsRage. I am Gabriel Morency. We've got a full house on the program tonight. Lou Gamblu's going to step up, and then Brent Beard joins us. Big card Julio in the house. Jimmy the Bag. We're kicking it old school tonight on the program. NHL hockey, we're off and running in Seattle right now. Looks like there's a ton of Vancouver Canuck fans in the building in the close proximity in Seattle tonight with the Canucks and the Seattle Kraken. So they've played 3 minutes. We're on the under 6.5. We're on the Vancouver Canucks. San Antonio Spurs and the Sacramento Kings. We're taking the over. 241.5 points. Sacramento and San Antonio also took Victor Wembanyama over 23.5 points scored. This game is just tipped off right now. The Lakers and Warriors have not tipped off yet. It's like 4.5 in-game, but they haven't tipped off. And the pregame number, because there's always juice with the in-game, it's 6 right now. 4.5 minus 130 or 6. There's no LeBron James tonight. So I told you guys I played a same-game parlay here. Steph Curry to score 25 or more and Anthony Davis to score 25 or more. I would expect AD to go off tonight. And even though there's no LeBron James, I would expect this to be still a pretty close basketball game. I'm not comfortable laying 6 points. All these Warrior games are always close, all right? They just play close games all the time. So I'd even take the Lakers at the 6. I don't want to force anything. I'm going to wait to see how it starts and plays out. I'm already in on the San Antonio and Sacramento. We've got college basketball on the board as well. But let's get Cam Stewart's NHL picks. Cam, Vancouver and Seattle have started, and so have Toronto and Vegas. Who are you on in Vancouver and Seattle?
I like Vancouver, Gabe. I know we were on the wrong end with Colorado, but they were really good. They just had no puck luck in that game. So I like them tonight. Nice geographical rivalry there. I like the Canucks. I'm actually taking the Leafs tonight, not because, and Vegas is a really good team. I just think it's good for Toronto to play on a back-to-back and not be in Vegas for an extra night. Eichel and Stone out for Vegas. They're off to a pretty hot start right now, and Jones made a couple saves. Vegas has gotten close. I'm on Toronto plus 105. And in the final game, I took the Kings in regulation, and I laid the juice with LA. They're playing a lot better hockey right now, Morency. See if they can get it done against Nashville.
And the Vancouver Canucks have taken a 1-0 lead on Seattle.
Excellent.
I tell you what, their goalie, Grubauer, he lost his stick, and his stick was stuck behind the net. It was stuck in the net, so no one could really pick it up and give it to him. I don't know how the hell it ended up back there. But, yeah, his stick ended up behind the net, stuck, like, in the net. He didn't have a stick for like 15 seconds. And I'm thinking to myself, Vancouver had the puck. And I'm like, guys, you got to flick it low. You got to shoot it low. And they knew. They just were looking for the lane. They teed one up low. They ended up getting the rebound. JT Miller punches it in the slot on the backhand. So the Vancouver Canucks are 28-8-2 when scoring first this season. So they do have a 1-0 lead right now, and they're going on the power play. So they just caused Seattle to take a penalty as far as the in-game total is concerned. Still 6.5. The Canucks have ballooned to minus 250. The Blues are up 4-0 on the Islanders right now. The Flames are up 2-1 on the Bruins. That total is 6.5. And you know what? I think I'm going to jump in on this, Cam. I'm taking the under 6.5 at Boston and Calgary.
I love that play. I'm on Calgary as well. Boston can't get in a track meet tonight. Remember, Gabe, last night we talked about it. We got Edmonton plus 2.5. Edmonton lost a heartbreaker. They lost 2 defensemen last night. They're a real thin team playing out on the West Coast. They can't screw around. As for Calgary, they don't want to play loose hockey either, so I do agree with you, 6.5 live. I like the Flames to win like a 3-2 type of game. It should be pretty close.
The Nashville Predators are taking on the LA Kings. The Kings have been playing better after they shook things up, after they hit rock bottom. They're the favorites tonight against the Predators, laying minus 155 right now. The total is light at 5.5 in this game. What's your pick for the Predators and the Kings? I didn't bet this game.
I took the Kings game, but also conversely, I think the other games might go under. Like I like the under in Toronto and Vegas. They don't want to get into a track meet with these guys tonight, but I like the over. Nashville's been scoring a lot of goals recently, and LA's really tuned it up too. They scored 5 against Columbus. I think they're playing more to the over. 5-4 game against Boston before they came back home. So LA's kind of opened it up a little bit. I'm going to take over 5.5 with the Kings on the money line, please.
One college basketball game that I liked, I didn't get to play in. I don't want to, I can't play everything, so I sort of saw it. And I'm like, man, I was like, why the hell are Cal favored by 9.5 points against Oregon State? No, really. Like, they're both in the identical record, Cam. They're both 11-15. So I'm like, this doesn't really make a lot of sense here. Cal aren't going to beat anybody by 10. Like, seriously, unless they're playing Cal Baptist. And even that, I doubt they would cover that number against Cal Baptist. And Oregon State got off to an early lead. It was like it fell to 6.5. And I was like, oh, I don't know, 6.5, 7.5 now. It's freaking 13-5 right now for Oregon State.
Those Beavers.
Now, they're plus 3.5. Cal are still minus 3.5. I got to tell you, like, even now at this worst number, plus 165 isn't bad with Oregon State. Like,
no, you're right.
Cal are not good. Like, so, you know what I mean? But it's only an 8-point lead. It's early. Sometimes you have to just accept it. Northwestern and Michigan are in action right now. Michigan are terrible. Michigan are money burners. They are covering right now. They're getting 12.5. They're losing by 4, 48-44 with 14 minutes remaining in that game. Washington are messing Arizona State up right now by a 20 spot. It's 49-29. And we got more college basketball action coming up here in the late night hours. And our boy Gamblu actually told me that he's got some college basketball thoughts that he wants to share. And Lou is joining us from the beautiful state of Arizona. Arizona are in action tonight, Cam. 13-point favorites against Washington State. The total is 150.5. Washington State upset Arizona earlier this year already.
Might be a sucker play, Morency, but I'm taking the Cougars again. You're right. They beat them 73-70 in Pullman. Washington State's defense is pretty good. Arizona's an awesome team at home. I get it. They can win this game by margin, but it's too many points for me. By the way, good call. You talked about Minnesota's ATS record. Didn't let it scare off tonight, even though Ohio State made a little bit of a rally. Another cover and win for the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Good stuff there. I think we were both on them. So, yes, Gabe, I'm taking Washington State, buddy. It's a lot of points. I know Arizona is awesome, but I just think it's too many. Wazoo can hang if they play some good D.
Yeah, I talked about Minnesota last night. I gave that as the best bet on the way out. Nobody ever talks about the Minnesota Golden Gophers, despite now they're 23-3 against the spread. They're always short favorites at home, and they're big underdogs all the time when they're on the road. They don't get a lot of respect from the general betting public. I don't talk about them enough either. I wish I'd been betting on more Minnesota Golden Gopher games this year. 11-7 right now for the Golden State Warriors. And one thing I'll bring up here about this Laker-Warrior game, when LeBron James doesn't play, the Lakers run a lot more, right? LeBron is old. He slows them down. You see the same thing like the Sixers. They didn't work out tonight, but the Sixers are faster without Joel Embiid on the floor, and the Lakers are significantly faster. LeBron always has the ball, and he walks it up the court all the time, right? So now suddenly you got guys pushing it up the court. They play faster, so that's why the total is as high as it is. It's 245.5 right now in game, but this one, guys, let's keep our eye on this. It wouldn't surprise me if this Laker-Warrior game turns into like some stupid high-scoring track meet tonight. 11-9 right now, 245.5 is the in-game total. So we've got some MMA to get into with Lou. We've got some college baseball going on right now. And speaking of Lou, Lou's actually from Nebraska. He lived over there before. Nebraska's up 6-2 on Grand Canyon right now. This game is wrapping up. We're in the top of the ninth inning. We'll get into a little college baseball with Lou, but we're going to focus in on some NHL futures and UFC Fight Night. I think it's 297. Like the Minnesota Wild were down by 2 goals today. They were down by 3 goals, actually, today at one point. And they came back and won. Like teams like, the Edmonton Oilers and the Coyote game went back and forth. The NHL really, you could argue, really is the best sport for in-game betting where you can pull the trigger on both teams.
SportsRage Late Night, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
The first unanimous number 1 team this season in the AP poll, which is the kiss of death. True. Right now, given what we've seen winning on the road in college basketball, it's a kiss of death to walk in there as a unanimous number 1 team in the country. Everyone says you're awesome. Everyone's telling you how great you are. And you go up against a coach who has your number for the most part.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Guess what? Rock fight alert. Rock fight alert. Look at this Missouri-Tennessee score at the under 16. 1-0 Missouri. What is that?
Watched the entire Penguin game on Sunday. Been watching a lot of their games. I feel like we're seeing the end of the Empire. There's talk of them maybe trading some big names.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
I think you try to trade Mikal Bridges. I think he's someone that is a 3-and-D guy, can score, and his game is elevated. He's leaving Phoenix, even though his game has maybe regressed a little bit from last year. As the number 2 option, Mikal Bridges can fetch you, I would say, at least 3 first-round draft picks. If you're not going to contend with Mikal Bridges, do him right, trade him, do a full rebuild.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
SportsRage Late
This sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The Thursday Night Throwdown continues. This is Sports Rage. I'm Morency. We got a full house tonight. Jimmy the Bag's going to step up and in. We got Big Card Julio. Everyone's got a nickname tonight. Jimmy the Bag, Big Card Julio, Gamblu, except Brent Beard. Brent Beard will join us in level 3. A lot of college football stuff to get into. I told you guys the other night about they announced the new college playoff format. And I said, yeah, whatever. They're going to change it anyways, like right away. And, it won't last long. This format, they always change things. And before we've even started this, they're having meetings now already because their TV deal is up. And it's all about, well, we need more playoff games because we can make more money. So now they're kicking the tires on a 14-team playoff. Now they're arguing whether it should be 14 to 16. You see how we started at 4. Now we're at 12. Now they're like, oh, let's go to 16. Whatever. I promise you guys. It's 2024 right now. By 2034, it'll be like a 32-team playoff. They'll be like, well, let's do – no, I guarantee you. They'll be like, well, we should just do like an NCAA tournament bracket of 32, which I don't even have a problem with this at this point. Who cares? Whatever. It doesn't change anything at the top. Let's bring in Lou right now. It's been too long since Gamblu has kicked it with us. Good to see you, Lou. How you doing tonight?
I'm tickled to be here with you guys. Thanks so much for having me on. Things are going great, Gabriel. Cam, great to see you, brother.
Nice seeing you, Lou.
I haven't seen you since the World Baseball Classic, in which I had a great time in Phoenix.
Yeah, the Canadians came down in force. It was great to see you. And, boy, Phoenix is rife with great sporting events. We got to fix our golf tournament, but other than that, we're doing well.
Were you one of the rowdies? You were out of control, weren't you? You were one of the drunk ones? No?
Many years ago.
It is called the Waste Management for a reason, but the Final Four is actually in Glendale this year, which is pretty cool. I might come down, although I know my Michigan Wolverines won't be playing in the Final Four this year. And, of course, the Dodgers spring training in Glendale as well. There's a lot of stuff going on. The Dodgers open up their their spring training campaign with a bang today. But we've got some hockey going on right now, Lou. Did you dabble in any games tonight at all?
I was just telling Cam before we went on, I took a little taste, just a little one, of the under in Nashville and L.A., thinking that when both teams are working, they've got to stop the goals. Now, it's risky taking unders in the regular season, and I'm not really a regular season investor. I prefer to bet the playoffs because they're such different seasons, Gabriel, but I do have a little taste on the under and the Kings, and I think it's potentially a dangerous situation.
It's been a pretty crazy couple of weeks in the NHL. Like, people, Lou, I've been talking about this, like, people criticize the NBA a lot, right? Oh, I don't watch it. They don't play defense. It's soft. It's like, okay, you don't say the same thing when it's a 10-7 hockey game with Minnesota and Vancouver. Last night, 6-5, Boston, Edmonton. Yeah. I could go on and on. The NHL, I think it's a byproduct, Lou, of the sort of, when you get, and people complain, it's like, dude, it's an 82-game season, right? Even the coaches know I can't yell at everybody every night about everything. And there just sort of becomes this flow of the season and stuff. But where I'm going, like you said, is dangerous betting unders right now in the NHL. Man, it's been a high-scoring couple of weeks, dude. I mean, dude, we had a game the other day where there was one game where 3 guys had a hat trick, like in the same game.
Yeah.
Look at Austin Matthews scoring all the goals, most goals since Mario Lemieux. First time since the 90s and the 80s that 3 guys had a hat trick in the same game. It's been very high-scoring hockey over the last month or so, Lou.
It absolutely has, and that's why I've always had such a difficult time getting in the rhythm of any regular season. As we approach the playoffs and that wild card gets a little bit more intense, slowly space on the ice is going to be removed, And then once the playoffs start, there is no 3-3 tiptoe through the tulips with all kinds of room to skate anymore. You got to play until someone wins. And a team like the Islanders, say, with 11 or 12 overtime losses, they're not designed for 3-on-3, but they sure are designed for overtime 5-on-5. Another team is the Kings that play some defense. They've got some leaky goaltending that they're dealing with, but I really look for those defensive teams as we get in and closer to the playoffs. And I'll also note that those totals start to compress a little during the postseason as well.
I don't know when it'll sort of it'll just sort of switch and where it'll become like, all right, guys, we're not doing this anymore, right? We're not playing 6-5 games every night. We're not doing this. Because coaches hate it, but they lose control of these games, and they just sort of become, it goes back and forth. I guess in March, maybe we have a couple of more weeks of this.
Yeah.
I mean, the season ends in mid-April, but at some point, teams are going to start to say, man, we got to tighten up. Like, we can't, we can't. But I don't know. This is the modern era we're in. Maybe this is just a new NHL right now, to be honest.
Like a team like your Canucks, right? And you know how hard it is to climb teams with regulation. They got to lose at regulation. You get a point, teams will play for the point. So those third period goals that we see, the back and forth, for example, like the Edmonton-Boston game, that stuff will probably go to overtime because teams can't take chances. Defensemen can't pinch. They can't do all the things that they did before. And tonight again, Morency, Lou, we were talking, me and Gabe, this 2-goal lead in hockey last night. Columbus blew a 4-goal lead. They were crazy live, Anaheim, and then they came back 1-3. Oilers were down. Me and Gabe smashed the 2.5. They lose in overtime to Boston, Lou. That's what we've been doing, just trying to find teams down in Detroit, Gabe. They were down to Colorado and won this game. They scored 2 unanswered. So it's just one of these things. These live dogs in hockey have been paying dividends, Lou.
No question. And really, those are great points. Having your finger on the pulse of these regular season games is really the only way to play it. I just find it exasperating because I look at hockey from a playoff sense, and I have a hard time getting my rhythm in regular season.
Regular season, yeah, I understand. Hockey is so much fun to watch, but it is very random. Like the Canucks are on a 3-game losing streak right now. It's their longest losing streak. They haven't lost 3 games all year in a row, yet they played well, Lou, right? It's not like, oh, yeah, we're not playing well. Right? It's just, well, they ran into a hot goalie, this and that. And so many times the Canucks have been outshot and really weren't the better team and won. So it's sort of like it's like the hockey gods like sort of even things out, right? And, that's sort of a random, it's a lot like soccer betting. You could bet on a soccer team. They could be so effing dominant, man, and somehow, you end up losing 1-0 on a penalty kick. It's a little bit frustrating, but you just sort of stay the course. So you mentioned the Kings. The Kings are sort of a team built for the playoffs. We get that. I wonder if they have enough scoring, Lou, in the postseason. You talk about their goaltending as well. But, the Kings are a trendy team every year. But if you look at the landscape, it's just so wide open this year in the NHL. Like the Eastern Conference, there's really not too many great teams. I mean, Florida, the Rangers, Boston, you know what I mean? There's not that. There's no unbeatable team in either conference, really. Everyone's good in the West, but they can all beat each other. And the East is sort of like, okay, it's average. There's a few good teams. But who are some of the teams that you're looking as far as futures at, Lou, that you think are cup contenders?
Yes, and so my point there, Gabriel, is just the opposite. I completely agree with the West being wide open, and it's going to be defense and goaltending that separates these teams that can all fill it up, if you will. So to answer your question, in the East, I think that to overlook Florida and the Rangers would be a huge mistake, but who's the flyer? I think the flyer is the Islanders, and your point on them will be the same as the Kings. They have a hard time scoring goals, but in the playoffs, you're looking at 2-1, 3-2 overtime games. That's exactly what they're designed for. They play from the goal out, and that is what I find is successful in the postseason. So those would be my 3 teams in the East. In the West, Yeah, I think there's a flyer on LA, and they do have gloss and they're sexy. Yeah, I have to acknowledge Edmonton. I will give Vancouver the credit because I think they'll make the playoffs, but because they weren't there last year and haven't had that taste recently, I don't give them a chance to go very deep. Rather, I think Dallas could for that exact same reason, that they got there last year and kind of spit up on themselves.
Yeah. I do think Vancouver, that there's an unknown quantity about them going into the playoffs, without a doubt. In the West, though, the West is so deep, but the thing is, you don't have to play everybody. And very good teams are going to eliminate each other right away. It's going to be crazy to see like these heavyweight matchups in the first round in the Western Conference, but I don't dispute it. Dallas, a dangerous team. I think Colorado are still the team to beat. You know, I mean, Vegas are the defending champions, but I think Colorado, Nate McKinnon's just so good. And they have a dominant home ice advantage. They know how to win big games. They know how to pace themselves as well. They've got big-time players that, you know, in McCarr and McKinnon. So I fear Colorado. When I look at this, I'm like, man, Colorado are freaking dangerous. The East, I don't know. Notice he didn't bring up the Leafs, though, Ken.
No, he didn't.
Leafs, not Leafs.
No, sir. 4-1, 1-0 tonight. They do it in so many ways. Very teams.
Leafs aren't on lose list.
Yeah, they're on.
Like the Minnesota Wild were down by 2 goals today. They were down by 3 goals, actually, today at one point. And they came back and won. Like teams like, you know, the Edmonton Oilers and the Coyote game went back and forth. The NHL really, you could argue, really is the best sport for in-game betting, where you can pull the trigger on both teams.
SportsRage Late Night, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
The first unanimous number 1 team this season in the AP poll, which is the kiss of death. True. Right now, given what we've seen winning on the road in college basketball, it's a kiss of death to walk in there as a unanimous number 1 team in the country. Everyone says you're awesome. Everyone's telling you how great you are. And you go up against a coach, you know, a coach who has your number for the most part.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Guess what? Rock fight alert. Rock fight alert. Look at this Missouri-Tennessee score at the under 16. 1-0 Missouri. What is that?
Watched the entire Penguin game on Sunday. Been watching a lot of their games. I feel like we're seeing the end of the empire. There's talk of them maybe trading some big names.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
I think you try to trade Mikal Bridges. I think he's someone that is a 3-and-D guy, can score, and his game is elevated. He's leaving Phoenix, even though his game has maybe regressed a little bit from last year. At the number 2 option, Mikal Bridges can fetch you, I would say, at least 3 first-round draft picks. If you're not going to contend with Mikal Bridges, do him right, trade him, do a full rebuild.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
SportsRage Late
This sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on
This is Sports Rage. I am Morency. So I wasn't part of the hate the Vegas Golden Knights success crew, but there are a lot of people out there that are envious, that are jealous that they won a cup so quickly. People like Cam that are Toronto Maple Leaf fans that haven't won a cup since 1967.
People like me.
Yeah, and
right.
The Big E, Eric Cohen, our boy Cohen's a big Leaf fan. He hates Vegas. He's like,
he hates Vegas more than
they don't even know what an offside is there in that city. They won a cup. Hate it. Like, it really bothers them.
Yeah.
Maybe reality's kicking in because Vegas are sucking right now. They're losing 4-0 to the Leafs, but they lost to Nashville earlier in the week as well. It's what happens when you have a target on your back. Not to mention, though, I brought it up off the top of the show, Mark Stone is out.
That's the
kind of the heart and soul of that team, too, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly,
he's not there.
Yes.
They're worn out. They have injuries, too, at the back end. They're feeling it. Cassidy even talked about it. He goes, now that we're Cup champs, everybody's up for us all the time. Everyone's gunning for us. It is what it is, but it's 4-0 for the Leafs. So big party for the Leafs. Flames are still up 2-1 on the Bruins. 1-1 Kraken and Canucks with 50 seconds left in the first period. And the Preds and the Kings have just gotten started. We're 2 minutes in. It's scoreless. But let's get into some combat sports right now with Lou. UFC Fight Night, was it 287? Mexico. We're going to Mexico City. And I see that they're opening up, finally they're opening up the Performance Center in Mexico City as well, which really will have a massive, impact as well. If you think back, too, Lou, following boxing from years before, there wasn't a big Mexican footprint in MMA at all. At all, right? They were into boxing. They weren't into the UFC. They weren't into mixed martial arts. And slowly, they every time they got their hands on some Mexican fighter, they hyped them up, right? It was like, man, this is the guy. And now this is sort of come to fruition now, years later. Dana White says a lot of things. He's a promoter, but I saw him beaming with pride tonight, and he said, this is a great moment. I've been working on this for 10 years. And I actually believe him, Lou. It is a big moment to open up that Performance Center in Mexico City.
It's huge. The Mexican culture for fighting is so fertile and so passionate. And mixed martial arts just completely blends itself to that passion. And you have a guy on the main event of this card that really delivered for the UFC, and Brandon Moreno, 125-pound ex-champion, trying to get his belt back. He's a very likable young kid, but the UFC, they do a lot of things that can be criticized, but they do a lot of things right, and they know where their population bases are, but whether it's China, Mexico, Scandinavia, they know where to go, and they know how to cultivate passion for their sport.
I'll get to the picks, not so much an editorial, but I don't have any problems with the UFC and what they do. You have to respect the hell out of their business acumen. And I'll be the first to admit, I was like, man, these guys paid a lot of money for this company. And look what they've turned it into. Now owning the WWE, TKO is a powerhouse. I do have issue, Lou, with some of these fighters' comments and stuff. I just do. It's like, no one, you know what I mean? Some of the stuff that these people say. I saw tonight Mitchell talking on Twitter. And it's just like, dear God, man. Like, I understand freedom of speech, but it's also exposing themselves as being extremely racist, stupid, homophobic. Like, that's some of the fighters I get turned off by, and I want to see them get their face smashed open. But I guess that's good, too, because I want to see them get their face smashed open. But, no, it's true, Cameron. If you hate a guy, right?
Well,
like even I said, I want to see Colby Covington get lit up, right?
Exactly. Yes.
It's part of selling stuff. Love you or hate me, right? If you're buying the fight, that's what it's all about. So I get that. I'm an adult enough to understand that. But some of the stuff turns me off a little bit. But it's not the company. It's the actual fighters themselves saying stupid things. I don't blame the UFC for it. So I just wanted to get that out of the air. But so Marino's a minus 275 favorite in this fight. Two fighters looking to reinvent themselves here. Lou, what's your take on the main event?
Well, in this fight, This is a rematch. These guys fought a few years ago, and earlier, I should say, late in the first round, in a struggle on the ground, Royval dislocated his shoulder, so Moreno was awarded the win. It's not sat well with Royval since. Now, Royval just got off a pretty intense 5-round decision loss to the champion Alexander Pantoja, a Brazilian, in December. He had originally, Gabriel, decided or signed on to be the replacement for this fight with Moreno against Amir Albazi. Albazi got a neck injury, and so Royval goes from thinking he's going to a free trip in Mexico City to, siesta and chase senoritas, and now he has 5-6 weeks to take a short notice fight after a 5-round decision, one-sided loss to Pantoja, and go down 2 elevation to compete against Moreno. Now, Royval he trains in elevation in Denver at team elevation. So the elevation will be less a shock to him, but the short notice, the fact that his mindset has to go in 5 or 6 weeks from, drinking margaritas to now competing against Moreno. And then when we get to the technicalities of the fight, Royval's a long, tall drink of water. He needs space to get off his flamboyant kicks and elbows. And Moreno, I think, is a high IQ fighter. He's going to crowd Royval. He's going to take him down. Royval's been taken down in every fight he's in. That's one of his weaknesses, is takedown defense. I see Moreno wrestling him up, maybe taking a little steam out of him early in the fight. But I do believe this is a situational positive for Moreno and a tough spot for Royval.
Is there a fighter on the card, in your opinion, Lou, that is going to get done in by the elevation? I'm glad you brought it up. I was going to bring it up. Great point as far as training in Denver. A lot of fighters do. New Mexico, Denver, which helps. But even Cain Velasquez, who we know, right? Cain had the ultimate cardio, and he got caught off guard by it. It's real. Like the Mexico City stuff, we've seen it, man. Remember Verdum showed up like a month in advance. He was smart, right? Some guys will really know, man, I'm not playing around. I'm going to go live there for like a month and get used to this and go run in the mountains and stuff. Is there a fighter that you think, because cardio and conditioning is going to be paramount on this card, Lou?
There's a couple of them. And on this 13 fight card, you have 11 of the fighters are Mexicans, but not all of them from Mexico City. But you lead me into a couple of really good fight angles. And it's the first fight of the night with 2 fighters, neither of them from Mexico. You have a guy named Muhammad Naimov, the Hill Man. He's a Tajikistani fighter, and he's like the Tasmanian devil. He goes out and he blows out for a round or 2. He's furious, he's aggressive, he's strong, but he tires, and he doesn't have very good takedown defense. And he's fighting a guy named Eric Silva, who's from Venezuela, that will have somewhat of an advantage because he's at least closer to Mexico City, and he's been in Mexico for a couple of weeks preparing for this fight.
Not to be confused with the other Eric Silva, because there are people thinking Eric Silva's still around, right? Remember, there was another Eric Silva. I just want to clarify.
There is. This is the Venezuelan Eric Silva. That's a great point, Gabriel. This guy's got a ponytail, comes from Venezuela, and he's wrestling heavy. Naimov, the Hill Man, opens 265. If you look at his price now, he's double that. He's 550, 560 favorite, with a guy going to elevation that gasses, that can't stop takedowns, fighting a wrestler from Venezuela who lost his last fight, albeit, but it was a long, tall Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter that he lost to. I think this fight has gotten way out of hand, and I really think that if Silva can weather that first round fury from the Hillman, the Tajistani fighter, and get to round 2, I think the Hillman's going to start tripping on his tongue because he's sucking so hard, and the wrestler, the more diligent, durable fighter, may have his way. So there's the first fight of the night, a complete bomb at plus 425, 430, and we don't put the mortgage on him, but I would certainly suggest that this young man from Venezuela is live.
I like the simplicity of his nickname, the Hillman. The Hillman. He's from the hills. He's from the hills. So you mentioned Marino and Royval. Their fight got stopped short. Interesting scenario because so did Rodriguez and Ortega before, right? They fought and they had the same situation. Ortega got hurt in the cage and had to stop the fight. So it's amazing that So it's amazing. The similar situations, unfinished business with both fights. Rodriguez is minus 160, Lou. Ortega's plus 130. What do you think of the co-main event?
Yeah, very competitive fight. And Rodriguez has some recency going with him. He beat Josh Emmett, but then he got somewhat dominated by Volkanovski. So he enters coming off a loss. And in their first fight, that fight was very competitive. And again, it was Ortega that blew a shoulder. And so both of these fights, co-main and main, are 5 rounds. So gas is going to be important. Ortega of Mexican heritage, fighting from California, has been down there for 2.5, 3 weeks. He's actually friends with Rodriguez. But important to note, Gabriel, in the first fight, it was Ortega that was the favorite, minus 165, minus 170. And granted, that was 1.5 years, 2 years ago. He hasn't fought since, while Yair Rodriguez has been active. But now we come, and Rodriguez is the favorite. I know that for Ortega, and I listened to the fighter interviews this week, this is everything to him. He's completely gone back into the gym to try and repurpose himself and prepare for this fight. And the last time we saw him do this, he got completely bamboozled by Max Holloway, just bludgeoned by Holloway. He went away for 1.5 years, learned how to box, and came out and dominated the Korean Zombie on the feet, and not many people can do that. I think that Ortega's a live dog here. Now, he opened closer to 145, 155, and so there's been a little money on him. His current price, 125 or plus 130, but I think he's up for this task, and I believe I'll be siding with Brian Ortega in this fight, the co-main event.
Lou Gamblu with us, and we'll let people know where you can find Lou online and his website and his picks as well. UFC Fight Night. We'll get some more. We got a break coming up here in a couple of seconds. We'll get more picks from Lou on the other side. Raul Rojas Jr. is on the card, and of course he was like the youngest UFC fighter ever. The kid was in high school. He fought. Imagine he was still in high school. And he was fighting in the UFC. Imagine being his teacher and like telling him like to sit down and shut up.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, okay, teacher.
Like imagine Cam. Hey, Raul,
pretzel.
You chewing gum? Hey, Raul. Hey, come here. Shut up. Hey, I told you to shut up in the class. Like he just gets up and like puts his arm by her eye. I'm sorry, Raul. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's great.
Like the Minnesota Wild were down by 2 goals today. They were down by 3 goals actually today at one point, and they came back and won. Like teams like, you know, the Edmonton Oilers and the Coyote game went back and forth. The NHL really, you could argue, really is the best sport for in-game betting, where you can pull the trigger on both teams.
SportsRage Late Night, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
The first unanimous number 1 team this season in the AP poll, which is the kiss of death. True. Right now, given what we've seen, winning on the road in college basketball, it's a kiss of death to walk in there as a unanimous number 1 team in the country. Everyone says you're awesome. Everyone's telling you how great you are. And you go up against a coach You know, a coach who has your number for the most part.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Guess what? Rock fight alert. Rock fight alert. Look at this Missouri-Tennessee score at the under 16. 1-0 Missouri. What is that?
Watched the entire Penguin game on Sunday. Been watching a lot of their games. I feel like we're seeing the end of the empire. There's talk of them maybe trading some big names.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
I think you try to trade Mikal Bridges. I think he's someone that is a 3-and-D guy, can score, and his game is elevated. He's leaving Phoenix, even though his game has maybe regressed a little bit from last year. As the number 2 option, Mikal Bridges can fetch you, I would say, at least 3 first-round draft picks. If you're not going to contend with Mikal Bridges, do him right, trade him, do a full rebuild.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
SportsRage late
sort
night.
of has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is SportsRage. I am Morency. We're kicking it with Cam Stewart and Lou. Great to have Lou back in the rotation here, Lou. So I brought up Raul Rojas, the youngest fighter ever at the time to come into the UFC. Still only 19 years old right now. He needs to work on his stand-up, obviously, and we saw what happened when he fought a man last time, and he found himself just struggling to get up on his back. And it's not an easy fight that he has this time, Lou. He's got like a dude that's been around the MMA game for a long time. He was on the reality TV show before. 30-year-old dude. Like, it's not like they're making Rojas' life easy with this fight, are they?
Not necessarily, but that said, Ricky Turcios, the foe for Rojas, is to some degree made for him. He's a wild, moving, fleet-footed, skilled fighter, but he has no power whatsoever. And outside of movement and really strike evasion, he's not very offensive. So provided Rojas stays aggressive, plotting, takes the center of the cage and tries to back Turcios up, I think that this is a very favorable fight for him. And I think that almost all of the fights that feature Mexican fighters on this card the Mexicans have favorable matchups, way more so than we saw in Canada a month or so ago. I think the results, as opposed to the Canadian results, the men went over in Canada. I don't think that's going to happen in Mexico. I think you're going to see a lot of success with the Mexican fighters, and you can just look at the price of many of them to see they're all favorites, and some of them pretty handsome.
Great point that you raised, and that was crazy. You know what? I wasn't at that card in Toronto, but the Canadians went 0-7 on the card.
That's unreal.
I believe it was 0-7. I was at the one in Vancouver, and Canadians went 6-0. There were people, I didn't do it either. I felt like an idiot. People were walking around. Oh, I hit the all-Canadian parlay. I just won. Like people were like lining up to buy drinks. I just won $6,000. I just won $8,000 because every Canadian won. I'm like damn.
Not in Toronto.